Hey everybody, this is Nathan Lehman at the Ultra Running Company in Charlotte, North Carolina, and today we're here to do a shoe review of the Hoka One One Clifton Edge. Now normally this is where I'd say let's just jump right in, but I've got a couple of things I've got to get off my shoulders before we review this shoe. One, look at it. This is Hoka's new design philosophy, which has a extended heel on the back and, less noticeable, an extended toe on the front. What they've done is increased the amount of ground contact with the shoe in an attempt to have folks striking on their heel transition through very quickly to get to that sweet spot on the midfoot and to toe off. In this case, when you toe off, you also get a little bit of an extension there to have a little more ground contact and a little more power as you push off. Now, I can't speak to whether or not that works, and this review won't cover that. What I can say is I do trust the folks at Hoka, and they've significantly toned this particular aspect down since we talked about the 10.9 a year or so ago. What you have here with this extended heel is something that the Hoka folks feel will get you into the sweet spot of your ride, and I'm going to trust them on that. What I can tell you though is that here at the Ultra Running Company, we are far more interested on whether people are landing under their center of gravity, so under their body pretty much, than we are on whether they strike on their heel, land on their heel, or land on their toes. And so as a result, what I can tell you is this extended heel, while it may look unwieldy to some, and super sporty to others, it does not get in your way if you're a midfoot striker or if you land on your toes. So we're going to go with our trust in Hoka that their research does show them some benefits of transitioning forward with this extended heel, and we can assure you as a runner that this does not get in your way and will cause no harm if you do land on your mid or your forefoot. Secondly, this is the Clifton Edge, and I want to ensure that no one watching this review thinks for a second that this is in any way related to the Hoka Clifton. We've done reviews on many Cliftons, and this is not a Clifton. This is a brand extension of a very popular line with Hoka. We can't blame them for that either. They're trying to take advantage of a franchise that they have to get people to try different shoes. What we would like you to do while you're watching this video is understand that this is not a plush Hoka Clifton. It's also not a hard minimalist shoe, obviously. It is a unique shoe unto itself, and as such I think they did themselves a little bit of a disservice calling this the Clifton Edge. If they'd have called it anything else, it would have stood out on its own and would have been a worthwhile shoe to both review and to run in. So with those things said, let's jump right into what we usually talk about at the Ultra Running Company, which is the fact that this is a low drop comfort cushioned road running shoe. What does that mean? Well, the low drop part means that there is slightly more cushion under your heel than there is under your forefoot. In the case of the Clifton Edge, Hoka claims that there is 24 millimeters of cushion right about here and 29 millimeters of cushion right about here, leading to 5 millimeters of what we call drop or heel to toe offset. We do our own measurements at the Ultra Running Company. We came up with 31.1 millimeters under the forefoot and 35.4 under the heel. Now that's a significant difference from what Hoka talks about. It does not change the drop at all. It's still 5 millimeters between the two, but it does imply that there's quite a bit more cushion under your foot than in some of Hoka's advertising materials. What does that mean? It means it's an even higher comfort shoe than they talk about it being. There is a lot of cushion under your foot when you wear this shoe. One other aspect is that traditionally at the Ultra Running Company, we measure from the bottom of the tread to just underneath your insole. Well, this shoe has a glued-in insole, and as such, we can't take it out. So we would usually measure this somewhere in the neighborhood of 27 millimeters under your forefoot, and 31 under your heel. So still a relatively cushioned shoe, just not quite as much if you're comparing it to other URC reviews. Another piece of having the insole glued in that I'm going to jump to right now is that in the southeast where we have a lot of humidity, if you do run through water in these, sometimes that glue can give out. So just be really attentive to that when you're purchasing this shoe, that insole may need to be replaced later on with an aftermarket insole or another Hoka insole out of another shoe. That's not a guarantee, but we do see it happen on those very, very wet days. That glue kind of gives out there. There are design purposes for doing that, but that's one of the downsides. So when we look at this cushion, what you'll notice that there's two levels of cushion on the Clifton Edge. The first, this reddish orange color, is really a soft, kind of foamy or pillowy cushion. This is directly underneath your foot, and it gives you a really nice sink in when you land. You land in this shoe, and you can almost feel yourself drop down ever so slightly. Now underneath that, the yellow and the blue are actually the same type of cushion, just different colors on this shoe. And this is a mix of a traditional tread rubber, that carbon black rubber that you see on the bottom of shoes, and a foamy material. Hoka mixes that together for what would be a second generation type cushioning, and they make it into this piece, which now serves as both the tread and a springy cushion. What that means is that once you sink in and you get that real nice plush drop, this gives you just a little bit of spring coming off. We didn't feel like it was a dramatic amount, but we did feel like it was very different than some of these pillowy shoes from Hoka, like the Clifton, like the Bondi, and delivers a very, very different experience. As I mentioned in the prologue, we don't notice any real difference for our style of running, landing underneath our center of gravity, using this heel or really even the toe, although it may extend our time on the ground just ever so slightly. What you will see here is that because there is no carbon rubber on the bottom, as you wear this shoe, it will wear quickly, but there's a lot of this, so it will take a long time to wear out. You'll just lose all these little dimples pretty quickly. Within about 50 miles or so, we were really starting to see these come off, and with 150 miles on the shoe, there was noticeable wear on the bottom. We're still super comfortable wearing the shoes beyond that noticeable wear. You get the same nice grip all the way up on this, so it really becomes a personal preference of how much rubber do you want under your feet. This is going to last you a long time. Moving to the upper, Hoka has a really nice engineered mesh on top. It's a single layer engineered mesh, but what I want to show you is as you look at it, and I hope that our cameras can pick this up, you're going to see there's some real depth to it. This allows for just a little bit of movement in the upper, making it very comfortable over your foot. Decent amount of space in the toe box. This is not a wide toe box shoe like an Ultra or a Topo or even some Hokas like the Stinson. This is kind of a traditional one to it, but you'll notice there isn't a super tight taper on the bottom. It doesn't come to a point, it comes to kind of a rounded area, and all of our testers felt like that was a sufficient amount. We didn't get any hot spots in this toe box area. We didn't get any rubbing. This is a very competent shoe. As you move back, you get to the tongue, which is held in by this stay right here, but more so, the tongue is held on by the fact that it's actually sewn into the bottom underneath the insole with some stays on the side. So when you put your foot in, I mentioned it was a single layer, there's actually a second layer from about this spot to about here, which really feels kind of like a glove when you put it on. Very comfortable in that, and your tongue is not going to move from one side to the other. Going to the back, another design feature that we've questioned from Hoka, but that has some practical uses, is this kind of elf heel. This is the highest of these heels that Hoka has in any of their shoes right now. Hoka claims that one of the benefits of this is that you can pull your shoe on, but I've mentioned this before, we have never really had any trouble pulling our shoe on. What we do find is that a more practical use for it is because it doesn't have a hard stop right here on the top, your Achilles can really flow right up through this area, and very few people have any pressure, if any, with this spot here. We do have customers that come in and on other shoes where it comes along more traditionally, it'll cut into their Achilles if their foot is shaped in a certain manner. We've not had a single complaint about that with this shoe. What we have noticed is that there are some pods here that hold your heel in. Those pods while substantial, do give a little bit of movement. It's more of an impression of movement than it is actual movement, but it was enough that we decided to use what's called a runner's loop, using this back eyelet to really pull that on, and we use both of these. Once we did that, that really pulls your heel down into the cup, and we had no issues at all with movement on the shoe. I do note that these eyelets here have some metal on them that allows your laces to move really freely, but it does mean that you're going to have to give them a little bit of a crank or use that runner's loop to hold it in place. Not 100% sure why they did this on a shoe that they intended to be pretty light, as that adds just the tiniest amount of weight, but it doesn't make a huge difference. When I talk about light, what am I talking about? Well, women's sample size is 7¼ ounces. Men's sample size is 8.93 ounces for Hoka. What does that mean? Well, it means that in my size 13 boats, this shoe's coming in at 10.9 ounces, which when you look at a shoe with this much cushion, with kind of the overlays that it has on it underneath the tongue, you're getting a lot of shoe for only 10.9 ounces. It's not light, but it's certainly not heavy. Now, when I say that not light but not heavy thing, that kind of goes for the whole shoe. We have the opportunity to review this now almost a year later than it came out, but after Hoka has come out with subsequent products like the Mach. And some of the things that you're going to hear us saying about that in our reviews are very similar to this shoe. The dual layers, the slightly extended heel, even this heel tab pull. But what we find in this shoe is that there is nothing wrong with this shoe. We really can't find it. In every way, this shoe performs well. It performs relatively well when you're running quickly. It performs relatively well when you're running slowly. It feels almost exactly the same at mile 1 than it does at mile 15. But in all of those cases, the shoe feels slightly less so than a shoe like the Mach, specifically the Mach 4. And so it's important to think about the fact that this shoe it comes in at $160, and now that Hoka has introduced a shoe like the Mach 4 at $130 that does many of the same things but at a lighter weight, the question is, where does this shoe come in? We think there's a use for it. Specifically, we point to the fact that this shoe has a very wide sole, is very long, and has a very wide heel. All of those things lead, without stability features, to an exceptionally stable shoe. And so we love this shoe for days when we're not trying to break any records, for days when we're not trying to prove anything to anyone. We put this shoe on and it feels exactly the same at mile 1 that it does at mile 15. There's no movement late in your runs where your ankles start to get a little bit tired. This shoe controls all of that for you. And so it's not a shoe that purports to have any features forcing your foot in one direction or another. What it does is it forces your foot virtually every time to land right in the middle where theoretically your foot wants to. This is an exceptionally capable shoe. We just struggled to find a single area where it is the best shoe. And at $160, we think you probably want to be one of the best shoes on the market. So we highly recommend this shoe in a shoe quiver, but only if that quiver has a number of shoes in it. If you have a speed day shoe, you'll probably run in that on speed days. If you have a long distance shoe where you're trying to go on your longest runs, you're probably going to have something there. This is a shoe for the middle. Again, it does everything well. In no way jumps out and excites us in any of those areas. The place that it does excite us is when you look at this shoe and you put it on and you put it on a shelf next to other shoes. This one looks really fast. So it's hard to imagine that other shoes are going to be as fast. In all of our runs, we found them to be very consistent in this shoe and in some of the other shoes as well. So again, as a complementary shoe, we really recommend the Clifton Edge. If it's the only shoe, we really want to make sure that added width and stability, that toe box fit you perfectly, and then we'd be able to recommend it very, very strongly. So we hope you've enjoyed this review. That's our thoughts on the Clifton Edge. As always, thank you for watching on YouTube. Thanks for sticking this out until the end. And if you can subscribe to our channel, we really appreciate it. It gets more people seeing us, finding out about the Ultra Running Company, and hopefully picking up a little bit of knowledge. As always, learn to love to run.